And this is the thing. Optus has got massive questions about, hang on, if somebody called customer service, why did the message not go back up the chain? What went wrong there, okay? Again, no one's letting Optus off the hook here. But again, the 000 system works for Telstra, works for Vodafone, works for Boost, but it doesn't work for Aussie Broadband, all the companies. It doesn't work for Optus. Why have they worked that out yet?
So they call it a firewall issue. Now, a firewall is just another piece of network infrastructure, Paul. And I asked the CEO today, hang on a minute, major network, computer network issue 2-3 years ago, another major computer network issue today. There's something fundamentally wrong here. And I think questions will now need to be asked and answered about whether or not those network engineers are still at the company, because clearly they've got answers. But the thing is, we don't know why that little change that they made stopped calls from going through to 000. It's quite simply put, it was a failure. Someone put the wrong load of code in, or they put the wrong number in the database. Who knows? But it failed, and that is what. You've got to remember, Stephen Rue, the CEO, has now committed to a full, independent and very transparent, and we can't question them for being transparent right now, review of this. I think that is going to be a stark expose for Optus, one of which they're probably long overdue for.
Now, depending on which website you read about whether his leadership is short-term or long-term, again, we'll see whether that happens, and I think obviously linked to what you've just said there about bigger processes means we're going to work that out not in the next 24 hours. Now, I want to put you a little closer to my lane, though, because I know if you want to, you may have an opinion on this. I'm annoyed at the state premiers of South Australia and Western Australia who decided to go nuts because it's a private company. As I showed earlier in the program, they are personally responsible as the leaders of state governments and state medical institutions for about 200 people who've died because of the ambulance ramping system. Yet the second the phone network had what it had, not inexcusable, but had what it had, this was their reaction. Roll the tape and then Trevor's reaction.
We need the telecommunications companies to provide us with the assurance that people, when they dial 000, will be put through.
I have not witnessed such incompetence from an Australian corporation in respect to communications worse than this.
Look, it's all well and good for them to call for Optus to have this transparency, but you've got to remember, Optus didn't know it wasn't working. When Optus did know it wasn't working, they started communicating with government authorities, federally and state. And the thing, look, my personal opinion, not a technology-based opinion about the advice to premiers is, and a little bit of inside baseball here, when I found out about the press conference, an hour out from a press conference on Friday, I rang everyone I know, and none of them at Optus, no one at Optus would tell me what was happening. I did obtain information that it wasn't a cyber breach, so I felt, that was the start. Yeah. We had no idea what was happening, but sitting in the room 20 minutes before Stephen Rue was due to come out, we, as the media, were able to obtain information that it was a 000 problem. Do you know how? Because someone rang a federal government minister's office, a little contact within the office, because an hour or so earlier, Optus had told them what had happened. They leaked like a sieve. And so you don't think that Peter Malinauskas and the Premier of Western Australia wouldn't have come out 20 minutes after Optus tells them at 9:30 in the morning or midday and taken ownership of this story? Optus, call it PR spin if you like, but Optus, as I understand it, wanted to complete the process of calling all 600 people affected. It's called a welfare check, required by legislation. They wanted to be able to say, we have called everyone. And I bet you any money they didn't expect that they were going to be telling us about 3 deaths. And you could see the emotion in the CEO's eyes. This was not a fun time for him.
Well, and I bet not any of those premiers, not any of those grandstanders, as I say it, don't judge Trevor for it, would be calling anyone who doesn't get an ambulance because of the ambulance ramping systems that are failing in their own states. Again, this company, no one's holding water. They contacted all people that were potentially affected, all right? Some of this has been terrible, okay? Do you reckon anyone in state government's double-checking when your ambulance is turning up? Methinks not. Trevor, the website, EFTM, go and find it, and make sure you give them a like on Facey as well. Thank you, mate. Love you.